Evening, everyone, and welcome to this evening conversation. Today, we are honored to have with us Professor Osita Ogbu, OON, a distinguished professor of economics at the University of Nigeria, Nsukka. Professor Ogbu brings a wealth of experience and knowledge, having served as a former chief economic advisor to former President Olusegun Obasanjo. And currently, Professor Ogbu is the chairman of the Alaigbo Stabilization Implementation Committee under Ohaneze. The Igbo Nation stands at a critical juncture, facing a myriad of economic, social, and political challenges, from infrastructure development to youth empowerment and youth restiveness. There are pressing issues that demand innovative solutions. However, amidst these challenges lies immense opportunity for growth and development, particularly in sectors like technology, entrepreneurship, and education. In today's conversation, we will dive into the economic policies needed to drive sustainable growth in the Southeast region, the social dynamics shaping community cohesion, and the political strategies essential for effective representation and governance. Join us as we explore this path forward for the great Igbo nation, analyzing key challenges, identifying opportunities, and discussing strategies for progress. It is my honor this afternoon with us, or rather this evening with us, to welcome Professor Ogbu in our midst. Professor, you're welcome once more to Njenje Media TV.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Maazị.
So, Prof, let us, kickstart this conversation. And I would rather say, you look well, you look healthy. How has life been treating you?
Don't judge a book by its cover. You have to read the book.
Okay, we're here to read the book.
We are well.
I'm glad once more to have you here. Now, let me take the first shot. What is your perception of the Southeast governors 1 year in office? Obviously, on the 29th, it will officially mark 1 year that the Southeast elected 3 brand new governors. And I mean, these are new governors, obviously, and they are clocking 1 year. You are in Enugu, Nsukka to be precise. You also have a new governor. What is your perception of these governors so far?
You know, as a scientist, it's not easy to make an assessment without data. I will make a general comment that we see a sense of urgency among some. We see deliberateness with others. We have also seen some that are struggling to sort of shape the agenda. And part of this is because people don't quite prepare before they get into office. And when they do, then they begin to scramble for what they do, what they will do. You know, governance is driven by ideas, concepts, theories, because decisions and choices are informed by those ideas, concepts, and theories. Grammar is very important. Grammar is the underlying philosophy of what you intend to do. What is so essential, but we dismiss it as if nobody help. So 1 year is not too long to make this assessment, but the way I have characterized it as some people are pushing things urgently. And that was something I want to say, we get overtly excited about physical infrastructure. We don't pay close attention to the social infrastructure. And so somebody might actually build skyscrapers in a capital city, but that state is extremely very poor, and the citizens are still very poor. If you look at the poverty index, you get one idea where I'm referring to. So
Sure.
it is for us to redirect them, that you need physical infrastructure, but you also need the social infrastructure.
Okay, I mean, I perfectly understand, you know, what you've just said, and I know where you're headed to. But you know, if I come back again, I mean, you said that some appeared unprepared. I think within our Igbo, I will Alaigbo Zion. We will know, you know, what you are alluding to. Now, it's, you know, be that as it may, let me come, you know, before I come into something else, let me just come back to your state in Enugu. During the campaign, you know, had a conversation with your governor now. I did have with, you know, the three main candidates then. And one of the key things your governor today said is that he was going to provide water in Enugu. I mean, partly grew up in Enugu, Chima, you know, Chima Avenue. And then we had running water that to a point, I couldn't drink the water because of the chloride, because of the smell. And then we had like big filters. When you get the water, pour them into filter before you could, you know, take it. Now, 180 days is gone. Now, almost 360 days. As someone who is a resident within this vicinity, would you think that that is a promise kept?
Well, you didn't warn me that this was going to be a conversation
No,
about.
I want to. Even as no,
I understand. I'm coming.
Yeah.
I just said you didn't warn me that it was going to be a conversation about assessing the
No.
governors. I know you are just breaking grounds before we get to the real conversation, but let me say this. I think in Enugu, what has happened is one of those things where part of the promise has been met because the full difficulties and obstacles may not have been fully assessed. And so that promise was based on there are certain things in place. And then you get in and you discover that what you needed in order to deliver fully, because my understanding is that there has been partial delivery. There has certainly been an improvement in the access to water in Enugu. It may not have been full as was expected, because again obstacles were met, and it's possible that the initial assessment did not reveal the nature of these obstacles, which invariably could not be overcome in 180 days.
I mean, I take that into account, and that's a very, very fair assessment of the situation. I was in Enugu, I must say. The reason why I wanted to collaborate what, you know, some of us already know, I was in Enugu in January, and I drove around from, you know, Artisan to MNA, you know, independent layouts, you know, areas where you can see there is a kind of, there are places where they've built the public water collection point. And there are places that people have taken the pipes into their properties now, put them on the GP tanks and stuff like that. But I mean, there is a slight improvement. I agree with you on that.
No, not only that, and it gets to the other point I was making about social infrastructure. So while we are busy with infrastructure, we should not forget to reorient the citizens. Because when people attack their own infrastructure, it tells you that we have a lot of work to do in rebuilding our values and systems. And I think in many ways, we tend to not lay emphasis on this human element. There are, you see, progress is built on certain superstructures, and part of that superstructure is value. The norms that we have, that if I give you a transformer, you don't go and steal the transformer. That if I lay pipes, you don't do things to destroy the pipes. These things should not be taken for granted. We need a program to reorient citizens.
Aptly, the point's well taken. It is indeed. I mean, in one of the states, I won't mention states, but a state you know very well. There was these public, bin collection points, and it's quite absurd that the thing is there, half empty, and you see, refuge being dumped by the side. And when I took a picture, I was like, I mean, how can people do this? But
Yeah.
that speaks to your point.
Correct.
People need to be well educated on that. So, Prof, if we come to, given your experience as a former chief economic advisor to former President Olusegun Obasanjo, what could be your recommendation for addressing, you've highlighted some of it at the beginning, what we now can say that infrastructural deficit in the Southeast, vis-a-vis trying to enhance connectivity, be it, rail, road, or giving you experience, what would be your what would be your recommendation in order to deal with this within the Southeast?
The interconnectedness,
yeah.
Well, you are beginning to take me into the realm of the work we are trying to do with the Alaigbo Stabilization Fund. I don't know whether.
Yeah, we will come to the Alaigbo Stabilization Fund. Actually, that's the meat.
Yes. Regional infrastructure has to be built by regional institutions. Because regional infrastructure cuts across the state boundaries. And that is why, whether we like it or not, the Igbos, in fact, Nigeria as a whole, must address the problems we have in the political market. People always discuss economic market. They don't know there's the political market. There is market for politics in Nigeria is dysfunctional. And so what we're trying to say is that in the Southeast, how do we correct this dysfunctionality? How do we get the governors to come together to understand that what is happening in our nature affects us all? That Aba is not for the Aba. That Newi is not for the Newi. That the MN Industrial Hub is not for the Enugu. In other words, do we have a sense that things happening in these group polls, if I may call them so, affects all of us? In fact, if you go to Onitsha, how many people that are from Anambra is even in Onitsha? It's from all over the place. Newi is dominated by people not from Newi, and so on and so forth. The same with Aba. So we need, for regional infrastructure, you need institutions, that's one. And secondly, you need the cooperation and collaboration of the political office holders. Otherwise, it becomes, and it is in the nature of politics, by the way. The governor of Anambra is voted for by Anambra. And I don't know, again, it goes to sensitization. How many of our people, we try to push that some of these governors include in their manifesto the issue of regionalism. In other words, a governor that has a more regional outlook should score some points as against a governor that has an inward outlook. I used to give a lecture in those days when we were talking about Southeast Economic Regional Cooperation, and I said, do we have citizens of the Southeast? That's the starting point. Meaning, if I'm from Enugu and I work in the civil service of Anambra, am I comfortable? Or will the governor wake up one day and say, these people are not from our place? So there is that sense that you need to create the citizenship amongst us, so that we begin to also see regional cooperation as something that will advance our common purpose. So one way of addressing this is through the governors coming together, pulling resources together, saying, for instance, we need a rail line from Asaba to Port Harcourt, and that sort of thing, because it's in our very best interest. And that money spent on that is wise money, even for my own state or for every other state. That reorientation of governance is extremely important.
Mm. Honestly, I can't agree more with you, Prof. Collaboration of political office holders, that is the key. And that brings me to the Alaigbo Stabilization Fund by Ohaneze. Now, as the chairman of the Alaigbo Stabilization Fund Implementation Committee, for those who may be hearing this for the first time, I want us at this point, please, treat every viewer, myself included, as someone who is in the nursery school, who does not know what it means. Can you walk us through what your job entailed and where there was a hat and what could be done to leapfrog and get to the next stage? The floor is yours, sir.
Thank you very much. Maazị, in July 2020, precisely, a committee of 54 men and women drawn from 7 states of Alaigbo, and emphasis, 7 states, emphasis. Alaigbo, meaning Delta, Rivers, 5 states of the Southeast. 54-man committee was set up by Ohaneze Ndigbo, who went to the Governors Forum and got their buy-in and concurrence. This 54-man committee, of course, including women, comprised of Igbos across the globe. We have members from Canada, the president of World Igbo Congress, presidents of World Igbo Alliance Assembly. I mean, members in the UK, all over, distinguished men and women. By the way, including the current governor of Abia State was our member. That is how that body was set up. 54 members, and I was privileged to be their chairman. And we were assigned with, you need to go get back a little bit to the background. Part of the background is Igbo's cry of marginalization. Our infrastructure is decrepit, and we're not getting our due share from federal government. Our youths are restive. There is huge unemployment in the land. Regional infrastructure that we were just discussing, we're not there. On the other hand, we have very many prosperous Igbo individuals. So the question became, we are doing well individually, but collectively, our homeland was not livable. Insecurity was ripe. So many things. Even our pride, the Igbo apprenticeship system, was now in decline. So the value system was also in decline. And we looked around, this 54-man committee started work, started scrambling. What do we do? Eventually, we presented a report to Imobi Ohaneze and said, we think the way to go is to focus, 1, on the land, and 2nd, on the people. The land and the people. So we then suggested that we need to create 2 institutions. Part of the crisis of development, for those of you who are in development, you will know that the reason why Nigeria, many developing countries are not developing is that 1, we lack state capacity, and 2, we lack strong institutions. These 2, because we joke with them, but they are really fundamental. If you go and study any country that has made it, they had these 2 essentials: state capacity and strong institutions. So we decided, this 54-man committee in their wisdom, that Alaigbo should create 2 institutions because we understand the importance of institutions. Ideas do not crystallize on their own. Ideas have to have a home. It is that home that takes that ideas to the market, and then the ideas produce results and change, whether social or economic. So what did we do? We told the Ohaneze that they should set up an Alaigbo investment company to focus on the land. You know, I told you it was the land and then the people. This land means physical infrastructure, regional road, regional railway, meaning if Enugu Airport was being privatized by federal government, this institution will come up and say, gentlemen, here is a project that Ndigbo should undertake. That Alaigbo investment company will then float a bond, will then prepare papers, will then call up investors, will then, and so on and so forth. So Alaigbo investment company was going to focus, and it was for profit. Alaigbo investment company would be for profit. You know, for all the things that Temayo Okpara did, he had an ENDC, Eastern Nigeria Development Corporation. So there is always an institution. Somebody was asking me today, what is the equivalent of Odua investment company in Alaigbo? What do you have? And Odua investment company is still existing. The other day I saw them having an annual general meeting. They're distributing dividends to shareholders and so on and so forth. The Odua investment company is still there. So that is the Alaigbo investment company, a for-profit regional institution. What we did was, because you need the buy-in of states, but we didn't want states to control it. We simply said, in the shareholding for this company, the states will own less than 10%. This thing will be owned by Igbos across the board. And we categorize that ownership in terms of monies that will be used for the investment. The second institution we called Ndigbo Development Foundation. It was a little bit more difficult to register. I'm jumping now because I shouldn't have gotten into registration. With the second company we recommended was Ndigbo Development Foundation. Ndigbo Development Foundation, because we recognize that Igbos like to make money, but Igbos are also generous. In other words, Igbos are philanthropic. All of us are doing small things in our various villages. We are giving scholarships. We are doing XYZ. But think about it. If we are the technology drivers of this country, how come we are not the one with the best technical institution in the country? So the Ndigbo Development Foundation was to do the soft part, the social infrastructure, to deal with issues of security. You can't be investing and making money when you can't travel home. So we said the Igbo philanthropy will be captured in the Ndigbo Development Foundation, where we will be pulling resources together again in an institution. It is such an institution that can tell Rockefeller Foundation, we have 2 million. Can you give us 1 million? And somebody who has worked for donors before. Donors go where those who are seeking their help are also putting their money in. In other words, if you say, I want to raise the standard of schools in the Southeast in Alaigbo, I'll give you an example. We can say, under no circumstance will an Igbo child sit in a classroom that is not well equipped, well presented with normal desks, a computer, and so on. That there is a minimum across Igbo land. What you have to understand, and that's why I refer to philosophy in my earlier statement, philosophy is very important, underlining theory behind everything. And people say theory is bad. Theory is the mother of practice. It's not bad. Remember Catalonia, where all of you are fans of Barcelona, the football team. We are not dissimilar. These are people who have been agitating to be a separate nation from Spain. Spain says no. They say, okay, what are we going to do? We will make this the best part of Spain. They came together and built the best part of Spain in Catalonia. So we want to stay in this country. We will make Alaigbo the best part of the country. So that was the idea, that the Ndigbo Development Foundation will be dealing. We were going to also suggest that they revamp the Igbo apprenticeship system by changing what I may call the agency. It's a little bit more, I don't want to go into the detail, but you know that part of why it is failing is because of trust and declining values. But there is a way of re-engineering even the contracting and the arrangement, given the circumstances, and we will still have that unique venture capital, completely Igbo-driven venture capital approach to setting up new investors. We presented this to Imobi and said our work was done. We have finished the thinking. Here is the result. You guys go ahead with it. Imobi said, no. You can't present this beautiful result and they want somebody else to go and implement it. So that's when we now change from being an Alaigbo Stabilization Fund Steering Committee to an Alaigbo Stabilization Fund Technical Implementation Committee.
Mm-hmm.
We were now given the mandate to go back and do what we said should be done. So we went back with the help of our members. All this while, and I think it's important to mention, we never asked for any 1 naira from anyone, not from Ohaneze, not from governors, not from anyone. Our members tasked ourselves and we started donating, contributing 1 million each. Quite a good number of us did. And then we now use that money to engineer the process of registering Alaigbo Investment Company with the CAC and Ndigbo Development Foundation with the CAC. But that is the one I said it was a little bit more difficult. To register a foundation is more difficult than just a company, because a foundation has to get clearance from the Office of the Attorney General. Okay. And this was under the previous regime. But luckily, you know, we have professors of law in our committee. They have taught some lawyers who are even in that office and so on. In any case, we succeeded in registering these 2 institutions. We had committees now working on to get office, because I want people to understand that it was not for us to go and run these institutions. It was for us to set them up and our work will be done again. Meaning, we were going to create an office, do an international search, because we wanted an international institution. We don't want institutions that anybody can poke holes in later on. So we were going to do an international search. We were going to do manuals of operations for them. We have committees working on these things. And the same with the NDF, the Ndigbo Development Foundation. You know, they were going to be world-class Igbo institutions. Non-Igbos can participate, but all investments are in Igbo land. For sure. That one is clear in our minds. And we made it in such a way, we democratized participation, that I think even if you had 10,000 naira, you could become a member of these institutions without doubt. The other thing we did was we twinned the institution. If you want to make money in AIC, you also have to invest in NDF. And we had a long debate on this because we said you can't make money if there is insecurity. You can't make money if we don't train the people that will work to make you the money. So if we are raising the standard of education, if we are addressing the issue of poverty, if we are addressing the issue of old people and so on and so forth, in the social sector, you should bear with us even, and we know that there are a lot of investors now that are called impact investors. investors are also not simply looking for mere profit. They are also asking questions about whether their money is creating impact in the society.
Yeah.
And we know there is also what you may call patriotic investment that Igbos all over the world. And quite frankly, I have made presentations on Alaigbo across the world, in the US, by Zoom, to meetings in Canada and UK. And everybody's asking, when is it going to start? What is the delay? So once we finished registration and we were in the process of drafting all of these things, we were almost at the verge of going to the market. Because remember, you need to create the fund, and the fund will fund these institutions. You understand?
Yes.
So we needed to get now to the market. And I wouldn't call it a handicap, but we didn't set up ourselves. Somebody asked us to do this assignment. And that somebody, Bo Ohaneze primarily, even though the governors endorsed it at that time. So at one point, even the governor of Imo, who I must confess was the champion, one of the most important champions of this, every time he would be asking what of Professor Osita Ogbu's committee, ASF, initially he was even willing to give us a building in Owerri. I flew to Owerri. The commissioners didn't understand what this was all about and were showing me some rickety places. I said, no, you guys don't get it. If this is going to work, it's going to be a building like no other. That effort failed. The governor of Imo still wanted to give a startup fund.
Was that under Okorocha or Hope Uzodimma?
No, Hope Uzodimma.
Okay.
Hope Uzodimma. Hope also wanted to give a startup fund under now, because you see, after setting us up, it wasn't quite long, the tenure of Nnia Nwodo ended, because all of this was happening under Nnia Nwodo. So it became the tenure of late Professor Obiozo. So Hope Uzodimma felt the parent of Alaigbo Stabilization Fund is Ohaneze. Therefore, it will make sense that if it was going to give us the startup fund, it is passed through Ohaneze to ASF. And that is Alaigbo Stabilization Fund Committee, us. And was now waiting for Ohaneze to write him to request for that fund. It didn't happen. It wasn't happening. So we developed a bit of cold feet. Because if we go to the market to ask our people that this is set up, can you now begin to bring money and invest so that we can create a fund, and the fund will fund AIC and NDF? Somebody can, behind the scenes, say, but who authorized this? And it can create a lot of problems, I must confess. I mean, those of us in this committee are distinguished people, and we have to think deliberately and purposefully. So we kept, therefore, nudging, pushing to say, all of this work has been done. We need to take it to the next level. We needed our parents to say, yes, please, go ahead. We're with you, whatever. At one point, and I might even have to send it to you, in 2022 or so, yes, we issued a press conference, a press release, which we called Igbo Nation, and Latin Igbos and Nigerians that have set up those two institutions, and saying that we needed at that time to raise 5 billion for AIC, 5 billion naira, and 1.5 billion for NDF. You know, we took one page ad in many newspapers to sensitize the people that we are ready. But like I said, we needed those who sent us on this errand to come along with us. And that's what has basically kept us where we are. We are somewhat unhappy about it because a lot of thinking and work has gone into this. If I were to make a detailed presentation on this, it's very complicated. I've just simplified it because even the structure of governance, even the membership, who can contribute, what level, and so on are very detailed. What an investor will do, we did almost a 70-30% in terms of AIC and NDF, and so on and so forth. But I think some of these things might come up in the course of my answering questions as people may deem fit. I might be able to provide additional information. But in summary, this is where we are. We have these two institutions created with their certificates with us.
Okay.
But
Thank you.
we don't have a home. We were going to now recruit those who will run those homes. If we had done that and they create a board is created, our job will be done. We will then withdraw. And these institutions will run. And once you have these institutions, the questions you asked me earlier will become their mandates. They will be the ones organizing this regional infrastructure, making sure that our people are connected from wherever they are.
Now, Prof, I must say thank you very much. You did, I believe anyone who is genuinely interested and concerned, having listened to you for the last 10 minutes, how you broke it down to the granular level that you have done, I think it makes a lot of sense. The key takeaway here is there's two institutions, Alaigbo Investment Company and Ndigbo Development Foundation were registered, and ready. Now, and obviously, Chief Nnia Nwodo commissioned this at that point. Eventually, later Professor Obiozor took over and was there for 2 years plus. What would you think made, or rather, what do you think happened why that didn't go as it was intended? Because I recall having a conversation with Chief Nnia Nwodo, and part of what he said was, well, once we are done with this, those in the diaspora can actually invest. If, say, as you mentioned at the beginning, they want to take over Enugu Onitsha, for instance, it could be an investment vehicle. They can take it over, do it, put toll gate, and make money. So it's not just, oh, come, let's repair a road. No, they take it over, they do it to world class and make money. And a lot of people since then have received a lot of messages, both WhatsApp and email, saying, where is this that Nnia Nwodo talked on this platform? Where is that? So in all this, what do you think that stalled the whole process? And considering, in answering that question, considering now that one of your key members then is now a governor in Abia State, is he in any way, shape, or form also trying to prompt his colleagues? Because I believe if the governors have full understanding and want to push this, they could actually give Ohaneze a nudge in order for this to, come to fruition.
Yeah. What I would say is, I don't know why it wasn't a priority of the Obiozor regime. Because we wrote letters, we said, can we come and bring you up to date on where we are and what we need to do? I made phone calls, and by the way, at a personal level, late Prof regarded me, has high regard for me. And so we have had regards for each other, let's put it that way, because he's much older than I am. We've met in international circles, and he only has good things to say. And so he wouldn't be out of disrespect. It's perhaps that when you get into that office, there are too many things you're battling with, including, as you know, issues of legitimacy that came along with his presidency, and all kinds of things that was happening at that time. But it will have been a shining armor. It will have been something to showcase that this happened under a certain regime. So it's difficult for me to answer why. I'm only hazarding a guess that there were other distractions. But like I said, I was in a meeting with Governor Hope Uzodimma, and everybody was there, including the PG, when he said, I'm willing to give you a take-up fund. Ohaneze just simply needs to apply for it. So you would ask yourself your question, why was it not applied for? You know, if I push too hard, as I did slightly, it will look like there's a personal interest. But here was an open offer made, you know, when we were all seated in Owerri. And, you know, that offer was never taken up. So, but it didn't even stop us. Because like I said, even as I speak to you, we still have some money in the bank that we have not used, contributed by our members. So all we were waiting for is, give us a nudge, give us a cover. Can Ohaneze call our big guys in Lagos, Abuja, wherever they are, to a round table and say, listen to what this 54-man committee has produced. How do you guys think we should take it further? How do we go to market and raise money? You know, institutions issue even commercial papers and say, listen, give us your 1 million, we'll give you 10%. You know, and we raise funds, initial funds, that's the shareholding, with which these two institutions will start operating. And once they are duly constituted, have their own boards and so on, they will start running. Like the point you made, if there is a project, they can create a special purpose vehicle for the purpose of executing that project. Money will be made, money will be shared. The NDF will continue our work to upgrade the standard of living of our people, including issues that deal with environment and so on. So that's where we were until Obiazo's regime ended, and we now went into Chief Nnia Nwodo's regime. And incidentally, Chief Nnia Nwodo now had another idea, which we thought was to advance our idea, because he called it, he wanted to set up a business council. And each time he mentioned this, because I attend MOB myself, everybody would say, but we don't understand what you're trying to say when we have this Professor Osita Ogbu's committee with their report ready to go. And so at one time, I went with the secretary of Alaigbo Stabilization Fund to a meeting in his house, and we were trying to get him up to date on what has happened. And he kept pushing the issue of, I thought that if you wanted to do a business council, the business council will be to advance AIC and NDF, meaning you will call those you think are business people and say, look at what the Igbos are thinking. If what this 54-man committee has done, we need to tinker with it, we can tinker with it. If it is structure, if it is process, if it is, but we need to advance this thing. I mean, I think this is where we are.
Okay, thank you very much. So when you talk about the business council, because last week I had you know, a very extensive conversation with Chief Nnia Nwodo on this platform, on this same series. And when I brought up the question regarding the Alaigbo Stabilization Fund, he said that he has taken a note, that he was going to represent that, and thanked us for kindly reminding him of that he was going to take a note and come back to Imobi on that. But let me pick on this. You mentioned Business Council. I believe that is the one that he talked about being chaired by Ohuabunwa, right? Maazị Ohuabunwa. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think so, maybe, yes.
Okay. So now, so where we are is that under Nnia Nwodo, there was this fantastic idea where you and your team, 54 members, have done an enormous job. And here we are also under a new leadership that appears to take a slice of the big whole, where then what we are now missing is that we do not have that big picture sort of, because the business council in my mind, even by the nomenclature of its name, is like a piece of the cake, not the entire baking process. I mean, that's the way I understand that. Now, one can actually drive further to say there appears to be a quagmire that started before him. Then, which would then lead me to, is it because it is within Ohaneze that we are having this kind of drawback? Would that help if the governors then take over the entire Alaigbo Investment Company and Ndigbo Development Foundation? When I say the governors, in this case, the governors forum, I do not know the legality of it. Obviously, 7 states were in it when it started. If this is moved into the governors forum, I don't know how that functions.
Let me address that quickly. We were deliberate in recognizing the critical importance of political office holders, the governors. Because if you're going to do a railway, the railway must pass through land and the governors own the land. But we were also deliberate in making sure that this is not a government thing. So, and that is why it is actually better driven under Ohaneze.
Okay.
Because remember that the governors are members of Imobi. When we presented this in Imobi, there were governors at Imobi. The president, the deputy president, and everybody, people, ministers were there. Imobi is a collection of the Igbo who is who, including current office holders. So you can't discuss Imobi and separate it from governors. They are part and parcel of Imobi. Okay. And we felt that our people would be more comfortable with a non-governmental entity, institutions that are private sector led, let's put it that way, but with very strong government support. So this statement will now lead you to understand both our thinking and what we think should happen with the 2 institutions created.
Prof, I must confess, listening to you, breaking these into the granular level, I must confess that a lot of thinking indeed has gone into this. Now, this is where we are. This is a month of May 2023.
24.
Sorry, I'm a year. I'm gone a year back. Sorry. This is May 2024, and every Igbo person listening to you, understanding the precarious nature that Nigeria is in, and people, especially those in the diaspora, sitting on gold mine that they could actually plow into the system in order to get things going, and that appears not to be happening. Then I would ask, if this continues unattended to, what will your committee do to at least ensure that a nudge is given, that some kind of motion is entered into?
My committee is doing advocacy because there is no self-interest, remember? We are all just working for the Igbo land. And that is why I am extremely grateful that you are giving us this opportunity to further sensitize our people so that we can put pressure. Now you said the PG has said they will bring it back to NEC, which means I will be expecting an invitation for us to come and present it again to NEC. And then we'll present it to Imobi. And then there will be some motion. I don't know, maybe the secretary of Alaigbo Stabilization Fund is on this call, and I hope other members, Emeka Ugwoju, for instance, is our member. Maybe you didn't even know. So that will tell you the caliber of people who were in this committee. And so very soon, if nothing happens, we might just begin our own campaign by saying, for instance, we go and visit Alex OT and say, you were one of us. We have come. We will go to the governors one by one before we deal with the forum. But more importantly, I think we need this buy-in from Ohaneze. It is extremely important. It is their baby. They need to own it. They need to make us take additional steps. So let all advocacy be on making sure that Ohaneze itself understands what this represents for our people.
I think, if you ask me, by this conversation, I would make bold to say that the heat is on. On this platform, same time last week, the PG here made that promise. After that, I reached out to him, on the need for, these conversations at least to happen quarterly, and which he agreed and saw reasons why that should happen. So give or take, between July and August, we would hopefully, if the Lord tallies, bring him back here. And part of that question, and I'm already giving an expo in advance, will be, you promised us this, and obviously that you were also here, and you were expecting. And I think after this, I would have to send this to him, if so that he also watch and see what we have discussed, so that we know that in the next 3 months, there ought to be and there must be a way, because we can't, in this sense, by means of his promise, at least let him bring it back to Imobi, and let Imobi decide. Then, Prof, maybe when we have another conversation, you then will tell us whether Imobi have decided, so we'll know whom we are wielding our virtual hammer to say, we heard this is now in your court, what is happening? Because at some point, we have to really hold the leadership to account, that ensure that these things are done. Because, in my view, fantastic and noble idea, Prof. Before we start rounding up, I will allow my guests to ask you questions, Prof. And I would say, if you want to ask Professor a question, please, you can raise your digital hand, and you have your 1 minute time to ask him questions. And Prof is here to answer your question. Now, again, while we wait for some of you to get to that point, and please make your question brief, if you may. Prof,
if I may, Maazị.
Sorry. Okay, go ahead, sir.
Before your hammer descends.
I say virtual hammer, so it's not going to be a real one.
Virtual hammers, I have a friend who says, I will send you an e-cow. E-cow might be better than the real cow. You know what I mean?
At least you can see that.
Yeah. So, what Igbos must realize is that everyone serving the Igbos are making sacrifices.
Yes.
So it might be a question of perception, understanding, misunderstanding. So the Igbos must come to the table with that understanding that even when missteps are taken, it may just be error in judgment. It's not intentional, as it's not to hurt the Igbo cause. So it's always important to bear that in mind when we react to issues of this nature. People are matured, they've accumulated experiences. But like I said, even in the Nigerian context, I always say decisions, choices we make are driven by certain philosophy and theories. So if those are not very clear, you might, have a misstep.
Well, I agree, and I take that on board. I have no doubt that the current PG Ohaneze and Ndigbo will live up to expectation as has promised us here. Because I believe in I believe in the things he has said and the things he's doing. Serving in Ndigbo, like you just said, you and your team, 54 of you, worked pro bono even contributed your money for this process. The same goes to him. He's not been paid. He runs, but I actually asked him a question that day. I said, who amongst the states, the state governors that ought to be bringing their money to run the organization? Well, with tongue in cheek, you could actually deduce that the majority of them are owing. So, and yet the job has to be done. That it's the Lord's job. It's the job for Ndigbo. Now correct. I have Njenje Nnamdi Nwigwe, please. If you may kindly unmute your mic and have the virtual lecture to ask your question. Thank you very much. Kindly unmute, please.
I've done that.
Yes, go ahead. Can you go ahead with your question, please?
All right. Okay, so good evening, Prof. Good evening.
Good evening.
Yes, I wanted to ask this question, and I would plead that you people may allow me to ask more than one question. I don't know if it is allowed.
If you're able to cramp your questions under 1 minute, that's fine.
How can you relate this stabilization fund with a sovereign wealth fund? If I can get that very picture, that I will feel very, very happy. Then the other one is very simple. Do you think that Alaigbo investment company can properly manage business on their own, or will serve as a pool where the rich Igbo men who have excess funds can put their money and let the good businessmen who understand how business is run to go there and take money based on whatever guarantee you people will want them to put or collateral. And so we have a pool where some of our businessmen can go, because most of the major problem we have is that we don't have this venture capital in large volume like this. Western, Southwest people and some Northern people are having. So our businesses are done in small patches. And I believe if our businessmen can have a pool where they can easily go and get this very money and do this business themselves, they might be in a position to run it better than this company that you guys are setting up now will do. So those are the two questions. Maybe in the process of going on, I will ask some other questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prof. I think because these questions appear to be a conjoined twin, I wouldn't take more questions, so you can deal with this for now.
Yes. First of all, sovereign wealth fund refers to funds set up by a sovereign. So Alaigbo is not a sovereign.
Yeah.
Alaigbo is not a country. So a sovereign wealth fund is a fund that is set up by a country that is sovereign. So that's not what we're discussing now. The fund we're looking at, and that leads to the answer to your second question. Do you know that an Alaigbo investment company can actually set up a bank? Can call for people to put, I don't know how much now is required to set up a bank, but you need such an institution as a rallying point, because you're talking about pooling funds together. The only way you pull funds together for people to go and borrow is you create a bank. I think the Odua people still have a Wema bank. So it is possible. We had a African, what do you call it again? The bank of Eastern Nigeria at that time, Continental Bank.
African Continental.
ACB. We had ACB. So it is possible that through these institutions, because a special purpose vehicle can be created, and the people will say, what we really need is to create a bank where our people can borrow. But you know that states can also create a development bank, just like you have a Nigerian development bank. And the essence of these types of bank, which is not commercial, is that they can lend at reduced rates. But that's not what we are dealing with in AIC. AIC is purely commercial and is not going to be run, if you listen to me earlier, is going to be run like a company making profit. Is not, so there will be board of directors, there will be shareholders, there will be meetings that will direct what they do and so on and so forth. So it's not a government institution. It's not an Ohaneze institution. Once it is set up, it will be run as efficiently as any other international institution, the way we envisage it.
Thank you very much, Prof, for that answer. So next person, Chris, are you there? And for those of you also, Chris, hold on. For those of you watching on the various social media handles, please, you can also drop your questions. Your questions will be asked in real time. Chris, over to you.
Hello, good evening, everyone. Professor, thank you very much for the information, very detailed. We are hoping that very soon things, you will get down to work with Ohaneze. A lot of Igbos in diaspora, we are very eager to invest in our homeland. So thank you very much for the information. Now, my question is, I listened to Chief Nnia Nwodo when Maazị interviewed him last time. He said that River States are not participating in anything Ohaneze. They don't come to meeting. They're not, they're not really following what Ohaneze is all about. So, but for your discussion, from what you said here, you said that all the 7 Igbo states were included in the Alaigbo Developmental Program. So how do you combine the two? If rivers are not participating in Ohaneze, why would they be included in anything Alaigbo Development, institution? Please, if you can give us more light, if you can throw more light into these two things, how to just oppose the two. If they're not contributing anything, so how would we include them in the developmental
Chris, thank
program?
you. I think your question is well understood. Prof, do you want to?
All right, thank you.
Yes. Let me say this clearly. First of all, the Ohaneze that set us up, the 54-man committee, included Rivers and Delta. By the way, there are 9 local governments in Delta that are Igbo speaking. I don't know the equivalent in Rivers, but there are many. And if they are not active, doesn't mean they are not Igbos. And they have always been, you have to go and rewrite a constitution to excise some people. As far as the constitution of Ohaneze is concerned, there are River State and Delta states are part of Ohaneze. And leadership rotates from one state to the other. And so, unless you go and rewrite, which would be dangerous in my view, this is my personal view, because we're actually trying to gather Igbos from wherever they are. There are Igbos in Benue. There are Igbos wherever. There are many places, including in Akwa Ibom. So perhaps it's our duty to re-engage and make sure we bring them back. Somebody like Rotimi Amaechi, I think, has openly declared himself and said so. We can, through him, reach others. So the Secretary General, by the way, under Nnia Nwodo, was from River State. So I wouldn't want to say that they are not it. They are. These things, games people were playing in the past, I think we should rise above it and make sure that everyone is included in this, because if we go on that path, then, you might disintegrate the Ohaneze.
Yeah, I think, Prof, I agree with you. But let me add this, that your brother decided not to attend the Kindred meeting does not detach him from you. that he's no longer your brother. No matter what, he remains your brother. But all you can always do, as Prof said, is to persuade. When Marakwan Ibebege meeting, Oluola 2 years Ibebege meeting, you come, maybe find out if it's the one that attends meeting when there is up wine, and know what to do in order to keep Poti Ananzuko. Thank you very much, Prof, for that. Aya, please, can you ask your question? Unmute yourself. Oh, okay, you dropped. Okay, Prof, it's been an exciting time in the last, hour, 15 minutes with you here, trying to unpick and unpack these things. Honestly, I feel I can see the excitement from the comments people are making online on the, on the socials. I have, I have one word to say that we are grateful that you have taken the time to really be up here with ụmụnne wee kọwasịala anyị ka ihe si wee dị. Biko, enwere m ofu onye chọkwuru ịjụ ajụjụ. Enwere m Elder Amadi Ebubembama, I believe he's joining us from the United States of America. Nnayukwu, good evening, sir.
By the way, Amadi Ebube could have made this presentation. He's a senior member of my committee. So that tells you what I'm talking about.
You see, the thing is, there is this trajectory that almost all the people in your committee, I kind of, interlinked with me somehow.
Okay, what I know the committee is wedding. Code water, even the senior people.
Exactly. I didn't know why people didn't include me in the committee, but now you come, the floor is yours. I think because you're a member of the committee, I will be a little bit partial. So you have the floor.
Prof, I'm very impressed anyway. I'm about how far we worked diligently for Ndigbo to make this happen under our leadership. So, Biko, whatever we can do to let these people know that's nothing as bad as always reinventing the wheel. Because the more I reinvent the wheel, the more we're taking ourselves backwards. So let's move forward. Luckily, the term of Ndigbo, so let's move everything forward so Ndigbo can really get to the destination.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Let me take a question from Kashmir Ezimako from the comment section. He says, question 1, Prof, I believe you can also see the question. He says, have you tried to become an institution yourself since that part of what you wanted to set up in the first place? Try to be an institution, seek general funding from members of the public, and run things yourself without going through Ohaneze. 2, since Governor Alex Otti used to be part of your committee before becoming the governor, have you contacted him to see, to see why and if he has tried to rally Igbo governors to come to the table to make move for this, move this agenda forward? Before, Prof, I obviously it's up to you, but I think you have, I remember the first one I already asked you, you've addressed the question, but if you may just want to, for the sake of clarity, re-summarize it again. Thank you.
No, the first one is, it would be somewhat dangerous for us to take over the mandate as if it is ours. Ima Madu set Yagi up as a committee, Sigi go and do this for me. You don't halfway seize the matter and now says it is now my own. I mean, the story will be completely different. These people are very ambitious. Look at them. We set them to go and do things. It will create fiasco. If Ohaneze comes to the public and say, we don't know these people, we set them up and they are now running on their own. In fact, one of the greatest appeal we had, and I must say this, and that's why I keep giving credit to Hope Uzodinma on this matter, because If every governor was actually as gung-ho as Chief Uzodimma, I think we will have gone far. He said that one of the things that impresses him is that we have not gone around pretending as if we are what we are not. He said other people will have printed cards and will be all over the world, trying to market themselves. But we have kept low key and believed we are messengers of our people. So that's one of the reasons why we have not tried to say this institution now belongs to us. We can populate it and run with it. We cannot be Alaigbo now. We cannot be Ndigbo. I mean, that's not the way these things were conceived. If you want to set up a company, you call your friends, put things together and set up a company. But this one is an institution for a people. So it is also people-driven. This is why we are even having this conversation, because Maazị Ezeoke is using this platform as the people's platform, if I'm not mistaken, Maazị.
Yes.
That is a people's platform to advocate for what is good for our people. I already said that, yes, our next steps were to go to Alex Oti. He's just been settling down and so on, and to see whether we can, through him, reach others. But I think the primary thing is for Ohaneze to give a nod and see how we can take this further.
And I must say that, please, Ohaneze, if you're listening, all of us about Ohaneze, but again, because the leadership of Ohaneze, if you're listening, this will be a great feather to your cap, because anyị nwere ndị Igbo nọ n'ụzọ ije na ndị nọ n'ụlọ, ndị nwelu na-eche na-asị kedu ebe anyị ga-etinye ego anyị, biko please offer us the opportunity ka ife ebe anyị ga-etinye ego ọ bụrụkwa ego ka na-amụtala anyị nwa, maka na ịma na as Prof school si kwuo na mbido, ndị Igbo anyị bụ ndị biznes, ego na ọ bụrụ na mmadụ anyị na-eme charity, mana charity nwere limitation, business nwere ebe ọ na-eje. Now, Prof, before we round up, ọ bụ na ịlọta o nwere Southeast Security and Economic Summit that happened in Imo last year. Many of us got involved in that. I personally was in Imo State for that summit. And since after that summit, a lot of people have reached out to me. In your view, understanding your experience in these issues and Nagua Soku, behind the scene, those that really pulled the bigger string, what do you think is the issue?
My experience, both national and international, but now sometimes, and I'm wearing the cap of a professor now, so I don't have too many questions. I'm not professor, so I do question. Now that I do professor question. But sometimes an activity is seen at an end rather than a process to an end. I'm a Romo, but I'm just hazarding that a guess that no go for do. And that is why a process leading to an activity is also important, sometimes more important than the activity, when the outcome.
I clear truth for that answer.
So it might be that now the activity in itself will an end. But it will be unfortunate because some of us may invest our time there.
Yes.
And part of what the reason why you didn't see me nowhere, but that Imane shifted the date.
Yes.
And some of us already had international engagements. So I left. But we worked hard behind the scene and so on and so forth. I was a member of the committee, as a matter of fact, to see that that thing is pulled off. And part of the resolution of that committee, of that Owerri, was also to advance the Alaigbo Stabilization Fund. Because Obaruru recreating things. Many people with ideas. You see people flying into Nigeria from the diaspora. And I must say that ASF, the diaspora than even in Nigeria. Let's be honest. Because, you know, our people abroad are very patriotic. They are looking for avenues. Simple platforms during COVID raised huge sums of money.
Correct.
No, raise just platform for you do my and raise you see people donating, you know, massively. So I've told people that even though we are a money-making people, we are also a very proud people who would like to showcase our place. Even internet, if we negotiate all these mansions we build in our villages, only reason why we are building them, you know, to create that Igbo. I mean, who wouldn't want to return 3 times a year, 4 times a year? Also, give in Chicago, wherever you live, Alaska, I don't care. You know, Amadi Ebube, or that your big house, you would like to return to it 5 times in a year, you know. So, and we want to engage our youth. We want to engage. So that Southeast may have been a product, it may have been a victim of the process, may have been a victim of other circumstances, but just like this one now, we may also nudge to find out from the Governors Forum what is holding the resolution.
I think, you know, having said that, I think, you know, an idea, which the last statement you made, is maybe we have to, the way we are, you know, expanding conversation on this, it's also to seek maybe those who, you know, I think the Governors Forum, I think if my brain is not playing Karo, I believe they have a secretariat, you know, something of such, that we may have to reach out to get people to come and, you know, tell us. And I think for a very long time, we waited for that to be a communique. I'm not aware, unless I didn't pick that, but I can't remember there was a communique afterwards from the whole issue. Now, you know, from the feedback I get from the people is that if nothing comes out of this, it might be very, very difficult to call people again, you know, when such issues come up, to really take it serious. Now you could late Chief Stephen Osita Ogbu, in one of his songs, Eze na-abụ ọfụ agụ ọkpọ na agụ abịakwa. And people keep coming out. Mgbe oluzi ọkpọ na agụ abịakwa pụtazịa ndị eze ndị ọ na-achị asị na ha amarọkwa ebe na-ekwu na ka o si ebe. So we don't probably have to and want to be at that point where it will be, oh, it's, you know, the outcome is already foretold. On that note, I will say, Prof, I will give you the time now for your closing remark. If you have any, then we'll call it a day. And I must say thank you very much for this, you know, relaxed conversation. You have exposed us to a lot of information that before now were not available to many of us. Now we have them, and we appreciate your time. We appreciate the dedication. And on behalf of Ndigbo, if I do have that authority to say, you people have made Ndigbo proud. You people have done marvelously well for Ndigbo. In order to dedicate your time, skill, knowledge, and even resources to bring these things together, we will keep engaging us, but also in love, to say, because it is for the collective good of Ndigbo. Prof, you have the floor. Thank you very much once more for your time.
Thank you, Maazị. Mine is to thank you very much. Ịma ikenego onye ọbụla a ga-ekene gị because you are one. Imaro na many of us are following you. And we know what you're doing. We are grateful for what you are doing for Ndigbo. Biko jisike, don't give up. We appreciate this opportunity on behalf of the members of that committee, of which some of them are listening. I want to thank them for their dedication and patience. Because okay, letter, I'm quitting. No, nobody has quit. In spite of the law, in spite of the fact no guy made a meeting, they know that this was our collective decision. Impose. They know how hard we worked on this. This was almost like a weekly thing. Luckily, COVID.
COVID, yeah, lockdown.
So this was the importance of Zoom. Until recently, we had already finished everything before I met Amadi, and he hosted me even in his house in a suburb of Atlanta. I've been to his house and, so, and I've spoken to Nigerians in America, through his own auspices and institutions that they are affiliated to. And what next? Because I think there is a certain clarity in what we try to do. It might not be the best, but we felt that it's a starting point to better and bigger things. So I thank them for their patience and ask them how we go on that with this new effort engineered by you, Maazị, and others, that maybe we might see some light at the end of the tunnel, and we shall all be very happy about it. I must say again that it's a collective effort. When you join imagination to common purpose, on a yield the result. It is only when you use imagination for private purpose can be issues. And so we are very grateful for the skills and talent that people have brought on this assignment, and the strength and patriotism people like you, Maazị, are exhibiting in trying to advance this cause. I am extremely grateful. Biko daru, Shinike.
Thank you very much, Prof. Imana asna ekeneke na onye akidi ọgwọta ọzọ ikenegonum na mụnwa ya ekenekwogo maka na asị na ekeneke n'ike nyụrụ arụ na ọ ekenekwa ya bụ isi imi n'ụlọ isi ya bụ arụ anyụ. Thank you very much. It has been a wonderful one-on-one conversation here on the State of the Igbo Nation series with Professor Osita Ogbu, OON, a distinguished professor of economics at the University of Nigeria, Nsukka. Professor Ogbu brings a wealth of knowledge and experience, having served as the former chief economic advisor to President Olusegun Obasanjo. Now, for the last 1 hour and a half, you have listened to him speak unscripted. That means it is a testament to the fact that he knows his onion. And on this note, I will say thank you once more. And for all of you watching globally, and those of you on this room, I'll say thank you very much for being our guest and giving us your time this Sunday evening, or rather Sunday night, for those of us on this time zone. It is an immense, with immense gratitude, I will say thank you once more, because one thing that we keep doing, and our promise on this platform, is that we must keep advancing that conversation, looking for where there is lack of clarity and knowledge, and do our best to go and get people here to speak to us. Driving that, one of the things we also want to do with this series is also, like Prof has been here in an hour and a half, having conversation with us here as Omunne. We also want to extend that to our elected reps, especially the governors. Even if it's quarterly, you come sit down with us globally, within the state, outside the states, that will speak and will converse. It is always better to Jojo than to war. On that note, once more, I say thank you very much. I am still Maazị Ezeoke. For those of you online, I say now, thank you for joining us. Please, if you haven't subscribed to this platform, by all means do. And remember to follow